What standards do you use for commissioning of industrial plant process or energy systems? If you've looked for a standardized approach for commissioning in the industrial industry, you probably haven't found it because it just doesn't exist. Well, if you're looking for a standardized approach to commissioning, then this episode is for you.
You're listening to the Industrial Commissioning Association podcast, where we discuss best practices for industrial plant process and energy system commissioning. Get ready to say no to outdated industry norms and say yes to improved project performance. Here's your host, Paul Turner.
When you search for a standard to follow for commissioning, what you'll find is there's bits and pieces of standards that are out there. One company will do commissioning a certain way, and another company will do commissioning a certain way. And the big companies have each developed their own internal and proprietary methods that they follow for commissioning. But it means that the industry has become very fragmented in how various groups approach commissioning. And then for mid-sized companies or smaller companies that don't necessarily have the resources to develop their own internal process, they don't necessarily have a process that they can follow for commissioning because there is no global commissioning standard that exists in the best practices to apply to projects for commissioning of industrial plant processes. The industry would definitely benefit from a much more standardized approach to commissioning for completing complex capital projects. So if you're looking for a standardized approach to commissioning, or even just a standard to follow to apply to your projects, then I want to introduce you to the global commissioning standard that the Industrial Commissioning Association is developing to help projects succeed with commissioning. This will be the first global commissioning standard that applies to industrial plant process systems and energy systems that project teams can reference in how they will apply commissioning best practices to their projects. Now, not everyone will choose to follow this global standard. If big companies already have commissioning processes that work, they'll for sure continue with those processes since they've already got great processes in place and they're working just fine. For companies that need a standard to reference, well, this global commissioning standard will fill that gap and help projects implement commissioning best practices on their projects. So let me explain what we're creating at the Industrial Commissioning Association. The global commissioning standard that we're creating consists of 6 parts. There's 6 different documents, the first one being ICA-001, which is the Global Commissioning Standard and Certification. This explains what the standard is comprised of, as well as how certification will work to certify individuals to this standard. The next document is terminology, and this will be the standard terminology that can be used on projects when speaking about commissioning. The third document is the roles and responsibilities. So what are the key critical roles that are involved in commissioning? What does a commissioning org chart look like? And what is the reporting structure? And who's responsible for each of the roles on a commissioning team? The next document, the biggest document, ICA-004, is the phases, milestones, and methodology to implement commissioning best practices on your project. This document is quite extensive because it gets into the details of what are the phases of commissioning, what are the milestones that we're tracking through our gated commissioning processes, and what are the methodologies to implement these phases and milestones on projects. The next document, the 5th document, is safety and risk management. Safety is, of course, a big part of commissioning, and we must ensure that safe work practices are being applied to projects in order to commission and start up our new plant facilities. Risk management is a big part of commissioning as well in early identification of risks so that everything doesn't stack up at the end of the project and become much bigger issues. So risk management is included in this 5th document as well. The last document, ICA-006, is lessons learned and continuous improvement. So as we're implementing commissioning best practices on projects, we want to continue striving to do even better, applying lessons learned from other projects to new projects in order that we can implement a continuous improvement process and continue to get better at delivering capital projects with commissioning best practices. So this is a new global commissioning standard that projects teams will be able to use and reference when implementing commissioning best practices on their projects. So how is the Industrial Commissioning Association developing a global commissioning standard? Let's talk about that for a second. First, we're gathering all the information that's already out there in the bits and pieces of standards that exist and compiling best practices that are already known and understood into this global commissioning standard. This is currently complete, And with a final few more touches, we'll be able to move on to the next phase, which is review by peers of this global commissioning standard. So we've gathered a network of industry experts all over the world, from Australia to the Middle East to Europe to Singapore, North America, Canada, and the US. And all of these industry experts will be reviewing this global commissioning standard and gathering the collective wisdom of all these experts in the industry to make sure that this is the best and most modern commissioning standard that can be developed in order to guide project teams on commissioning best practices. This is definitely not an improvement of old commissioning standards. This is really a new commissioning standard incorporating the most current and cutting-edge methods to successfully manage commissioning of today's most complex projects. Now, once this standard is complete, we'll then be using this standard to develop a certification program to certify individuals to this new standard. This certification program will be the hardest commissioning exam that exists and will be the highest certification available in the industry for anyone to write and become certified as a CXPM industry professional. If you're familiar with National Grid's TP141 certification program, this new CXPM certification will be at this same level or even higher in order to identify the industry leaders that are leading our most complex projects today. This new global commissioning standard will be publicly available to anybody that wants it. It's available or will be available in our members area within the Industrial Commissioning Association. When you log in there, anybody can log in and anyone can access this standard for free. We want to get this information and these commissioning best practices into the hands of as many people as possible, so we're making access easy and free so that people can apply these best practices to their projects. It's really unfortunate when you see some of these other standards that want to charge you to download the document or access this information. We want to get this information in everybody's hands as easy as possible so that we can help projects succeed. So when will this global commissioning standard be available? It's currently in development, as I mentioned, and it's about to go through our peer review network to make sure that it is the best and most robust commissioning standard available. That review will take place roughly over the next month or so, and we're aiming to have this standard complete and released to the public by the end of 2024. If we can get it out earlier than that, we certainly will. The best way to keep up to date on developments of this standard and certification program is to follow us on LinkedIn. I'm regularly posting updates there to keep the community updated on how we're developing and when this global commissioning standard will be available. So definitely follow on LinkedIn and subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date on when and where you'll be able to access this global commissioning standard. Who is this commissioning standard for? First of all, it's available for companies. Companies can use this to recruit the best and the brightest in the industry to fill critical commissioning leadership roles on projects and to ensure that they're getting the quality of people in commissioning leadership roles that is extremely important and must be extremely high. This also helps companies show clients the quality of service that they can provide and the value that commissioning provides to projects. So companies will certainly benefit from this global commissioning standard, either by using it and applying it to their projects, or using this standard as a certification method for individuals to identify them for appropriate leadership roles on projects. Secondly, this global commissioning standard is for individuals that are involved in commissioning have for the longest time had no recognition or ability to be certified for their high achievements in commissioning excellence. Well, now they can finally be recognized with the highest certification available for their significant efforts that they've undertaken to learn the art of commissioning and be leaders in the industry. And individuals can also not only be recognized for their knowledge, but also recognized for the years of experience they've had applying these commissioning best practices to projects. Finally, there's a high-ranking certification program that individuals can pursue to be recognized for commissioning excellence. And thirdly, this global commissioning standard is for the commissioning industry as a whole. Because the industry has been very non-standardized and different methods of completing commissioning, it's ended up being very fragmented. And right now, because there is no global commissioning standard, there's not even a way for the industry to slowly migrate towards a standardized method for commissioning. Well, now, once this global commissioning standard is released, the industry will at least have a path to standardize over time. Now, this isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to be, of course, a very slow process, but slowly and over time, as companies choose to adopt this global commissioning standard, the industry will move towards a more standardized method for commissioning processes on projects as more and more people see the value that a global commissioning standard can offer and become involved in following the processes and procedures within the standard and using that as a method to identify high-quality individuals to lead commissioning on their projects. So if you're interested in a global commissioning standard and a certification program to certify individuals to the standard, then definitely subscribe to our podcast to stay up to date on developments and to be notified when this global commissioning standard is available. And if you're interested in becoming involved in contributing or developing this global commissioning standard, then please email us at info@icxa.net. Stay tuned for more information, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening. To become a member of the Industrial Commissioning Association, visit icxa.net. Members get access to commissioning standards, procurement specifications, commissioning training and certification, plus many more specialized resources to help you with commissioning of your industrial plant process and energy systems. Visit icxa.net for more information.